Everyone, let's stand for a moment of silence and the pledge. And now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning again, everyone. I'd like to call our meeting to order. First part of business would be the approval of minutes for May 18th, 2021. Questions, comments, or a motion?
Motion to approve.
I won't be voting.
Okay,
I'll be abstaining as well.
that's right. Thanks for the reminder. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, first and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll begin with
Abstain.
next commissioner reports and comments. Vice President Baker.
Just good morning to everyone. I know we had a beautiful week of awesome weather last week, and this coming week we have Memorial Day coming up. I'd just like to wish all of our county employees a great Memorial Day weekend, and just be careful and drive safe, and hopefully the weather will be as nice for Memorial Day weekend as it was last week. So just like to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day.
Thank you. Commissioner Kiefer.
Good comment there. Happy Memorial Day to our folks in Washington County. Remember the solemn day that it is, and remembering those who gave their lives for our freedoms. I'd like to see if there's consensus among the commissioners to commit some capital monies specific to the Hancock and the Cascade elementary schools to help with needed repairs. That would be an effort to keep those schools open longer and take them off of the consideration for closure, so that we can allow the dust to settle with COVID and see where the economic development opportunities in those communities might take place. I think we're in store for a lot of activity, economically speaking, in both areas, both far ends of our county, and we need to not stifle that in any way and let that materialize. So no set dollar amount right now, but just to see if there's interest in allocating some capital money specific to
That
those
would help them
schools.
allocate money if they keep one of the schools open to do projects to help at that
That's
facility.
right.
And we also did money from Sharpsburg.
This would be in
Savings.
addition, that's
Addition?
correct, addition
Okay.
to, I believe it was $1.8 million that we allocated from the savings of Sharpsburg Elementary School to those two elementary schools as well. So this would be additional monies.
All right, commissioners, any questions or comments? In our consensus, we're not really obligated, but we want to we review this in the future after our budget
That's right.
cycle.
Yeah, good.
I'm okay with it. All right, thank you for bringing that. It's a consensus to consider that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kiefer, do you have anything else?
That's all.
All right, thank you. Commissioner?
Last week I visited the firehouse in Smithburg. Later this afternoon I'll be meeting with Paul Fry, the CEO and President of Washington County Chamber of Commerce. This week I'll be attending actually this evening the public meetings to keep the Cascade and Hancock schools open. And I hope the public will come out and show support for these communities as well as attending these public meetings. The Cascade meeting will be held tonight at 5 o'clock at Smithburg High School, and Hancock meeting will be held tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock at the Hancock High School. And then finally, I would like to request that the commissioners support the Commission on Aging's upcoming golf tournament by covering the Black Rock user fee. This fee will probably range from between $3,500 to $4,500 and can be taken from our contingency fund, which currently stands at about $70,000.
So are you, what's the, it's a golf tournament?
It's a fundraiser that the Commission on Aging is doing to raise funds. I think the fee is $35 per person, and with the number of people that they're looking at, she's thinking that it'll probably be around $3,500.
And then all of those proceeds benefit our seniors in Washington
Right.
County?
All that money then will stay with the Commission on Aging.
Well, I can't support, because we probably have about 20 or 30 other nonprofits. One of the reasons we've established a nonprofit rate so we wouldn't show favoritism. So we have a lot of other nonprofits that benefit all of our citizens. I would consider maybe lowering the rate, but not waiving the whole entire fee for a specific nonprofit rate for everybody. And that's also at the Ag Center, we have a nonprofit rate for people to use that facility. So if you're suggesting we should maybe evaluate all nonprofit rates, but I can't see waiving the whole entire fee because I know Randy's on the board, but I guarantee you there's probably another 10, 15 other nonprofits who are just as important.
Well, and I would make the recommendation that we would consider anybody else that comes in. I currently feel that we subsidize the Black Rock Golf Course to a tune of $400,000 per year.
Well, if you take away that fee,
so
then that's
we're
another
talking,
$3,500 to that
excuse me,
$400,000.
Excuse me. We're talking about $3,500
But
here.
you're talking about 20, 25 other nonprofits
that
who are
means-
just as essential.
If that
Wait.
means in the future that we set
I would reset the nonprofit fee. You're gonna cause 20, I'm gonna have 20 other nonprofits calling us.
what,
wanting the
just
same-
you or all of us?
I think you'll have other nonprofits wanting all their fees raised or lowered or forgiven
And they
because of
could
their.
come in and ask for that.
So where do we get that money? Where do we choose yes or no? You're picking winners. And I'm a big supporter of the senior center. Mr. Baker and I are the only two commissioners sitting here that went through those 4 years of drudgery. How many times did we try to vote and get the senior center going? We all are big supporters of that, but I'd be very careful waiving the entire fee. If you want to maybe adjust the fee for all nonprofits for savings, I'd consider that. But to waive it for one and not the others, I think.
Nobody's saying that we're not gonna waive it. or
Well,
waive
you
it for
are right
others.
now. They're all going to ask.
You,
So you're going to say no to one? What? You got when our former county clerk comes in for her son, she has a nonprofit fundraiser. Are we going
and
to
I'd be
forgive
willing
it?
to support that.
Willing or yes? So you're saying all nonprofit fees are being waived at Black Rock?
I know that I talked to Sarah, and we also have an extra $3.9 million that we can dig into for
Well,
stuff.
why don't we just give that money to the fire companies who haven't been able to do their
I
fundraising?
agree with that, and I would ask
So
you
now are
to-
you saying
I-
give
I-
enough?
And in a couple of weeks, I would like to make the
Well,
recommendation.
Commissioners,
that-
I need your thoughts on it. I'm not going to support waiving the entire fee. I'd reduce it to all, to be fair to all, but I'm not waiving the entire amount.
I'm interested in doing something. I think you both make very excellent points. I can't argue with either one of you on the points that you raise. One consideration that hasn't been discussed is we do have a very unique relationship with the Commission on Aging in that we are required to designate a AAA, an Area Agency on Aging, and for Washington County, every county in the country is required to do that. And for Washington County, our AAA is the Washington County Commission on Aging. We're required to have an organization like them, where our other nonprofits, they do wonderful, tremendous work for our community. We're not required to have all of those in our community like we are
That's the
required
area
to
on
have.
agency. This is
a
a
commission on
fundraiser for
aging.
the senior center.
I would also say that the senior center building is our building, and you're right, county resources went into building that building, but it's still our building at the end of the day. Another example of that unique relationship that we have with this nonprofit. I would be interested in supporting Commissioner Burkett's suggestion, but I'd like to know also what is the regular rate for an event like this? What is the discounted rate?
Yeah,
What
I
kind
don't
of a
know.
discount do we already give?
Right. And we can have that discussion. I don't know off the top of my head what that rate is. I don't know.
My position
Well, we
is
can-
you
we-
waive
we-
it for
we can-
one, you're going to waive it for
We
every
can get that
group.
information to you, what the regular
Or
rate
ju-
is.
or
what the non-
adjust
It's my
fee.
understanding that it's $35 a person.
Is that the regular rate, or is there, it appears that
That's
there's a nonprofit rate.
That's the nonprofit rate, I believe.
So, but you're right, that $35 a person is what she had said, so I don't know if I don't think that's the regular rate, but maybe it is. So I think we have to get the information to you as to what the regular rate is, if there is a nonprofit rate there at Black Rock, and I don't know if you want us to look at the Ag Center as well, but.
What if we agree to waiving it this time? Because the Commission on Aging, the senior citizens have been affected by COVID, and this is a way to recoup some of those expenses, help with the seniors that suffered more than probably any other demographic due to COVID, just coming out of a tough year. And then let's look at reducing that rate, because as Commissioner Burkett said, the golf course is subsidized by county taxpayers a considerable amount. I believe at one time it was profitable. I believe at one time when golf was utilized by many people, by many businesses. Times have changed, and that's not so. So citizens are paying to keep that golf course open.
Well,
I see both sides. I'd like to find a compromise like that.
I don't want a decision today. I'd like to see all the rates combined. But again, I stand firm. You're gonna waive it for one, you need to waive it for all groups. Basically, it sounds like you're playing favorites. And there's no one bigger here than seniors who spent 10 years of caring for my mom through dementia and Alzheimer's, now taking care of my 98-year-old father. I know about seniors and their issues, and everybody has suffered through COVID at every level. So I would wait to get more information, but I will not support waiving fees for one over the other 500.
It was actually my,
The other 535 nonprofits in Washington.
it actually was my opinion that we not charge a nonprofit at all to use that facility, since it is a county.
So if we
run
subsidize
facility.
that, where's that 35? When I was a councilman in Williamsport, and we would have a reduced rate for the pavilion for residents, that was for the repair of the roof, the repair of the sink, the toilets, toilet paper. That money went back in to the capital
Well, and
project.
I'm
So
glad
now
you-
you're gonna
I'm
waive
glad you-
fees for 25 other.
I'm glad you brought that up, because in addition to the 400,000 that we're gonna support them this year, we're giving them another 22,000 to
Yeah,
make
I just don't
upgrades
buy
and-
your
and-
argument.
Okay,
I think you're showing
Yeah,
favoritism.
for me,
That's all.
sorry if I chime in.
Yeah,
For
Terry.
me, I'm gonna support my seniors in any way I can possibly support our seniors. I know, through their youthful days when they worked, they took care of the county, in a tremendous way. And for me, to be able to provide and, to waive some fees for a golf tournament, that they're trying to raise money to help our seniors, with, I'm certainly gonna support that. And we just need to decide if we're going to support it today or another day.
Well, what about Community Action Council?
And I think they all should be on a case-by-case basis. If they want to come in and they want to present, and, or if they have a designee, or if one of the county commissioners want to bring something forward, I think that's, well within each county commissioner's, right. So, for me, I'm not going to have any problem supporting my seniors of Washington County, through this golf
I
tournament.
support the seniors of Washington
I
County
didn't say
too.
you didn't.
But I think
did
waiving
not
the
say you
fees for
didn't.
one group over the other nonprofits
we're
is
doing that.
Nobody's
favoritism.
suggesting that. I
Well,
make
yes,
the
you are.
motion,
Then
I
make
make
a
the
motion
motion.
right now to waive all fees for nonprofits in
Make the
Washington
motion.
County.
I make the
If you're
motion
not.
that we
Waive
take
all
a-
fees for all
Can
nonprofits.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, can I just say, I want to remind, we're talking about waiving, I think what you had mentioned was the money would come out of the Commissioner
Right.
Contingency Fund.
Right.
Because this is an enterprise fund, and you are correct.
Oh, that's
We
right.
do
We'd have
we
to
do
pay for it
subsidize
somehow.
those.
Okay.
I mean, the goal is that it would self-support itself at some point, so I want to make sure that we continue in that direction. I hope we get there, we may never, but we're going to continue to try to do that. So if we're going to do that, I think it should comes out of somewhere, and I think that's where you were headed.
Yes.
Commissioner Burkett, not a waiver of the fee, but paid for out of Commissioner Contingency.
So we're gonna do that for all nonprofits.
I make
just
a
talk- I'm
motion
just
that
talking about the golf
they
course.
can come before us and ask for
Well, they
that
can
to
do
be
that without
waived.
a motion. That's their right
Well,
to come before this.
I make the motion that this be approved. To waive this fee, or not waive it, but that we take this fee out of our contingency fund
For the seniors golf tournament.
for the seniors golf tournament.
Okay, I have first, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Again, I don't support, I think you're showing favoritism, 500 plus nonprofits, Community Action Council, breast cancer. I can go down the list of people who want to have tournaments there. So I hope I have commissioners willing to waive and take that fee out of our contingency fund for those other groups. And again, I strongly support the seniors, as I stated. Terry, I know you do too as well. It's not about the issue, it's about the money and treating each organization fair. With that said, any other discussion?
We don't know the exact amount. I don't believe.
It actually will probably be
to-
under the 3,500.
Yeah, they
Is that
probably
like
won't
up
have
to
more.
3,500?
Can we say up to 3,500?
Yes, up to
Yeah, 'cause
35.
there's not gonna be more than
We'll come back
100
to you if there's an
golfers.
issue.
All right, I
Up
have
to
first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? No. No. 3-2, motion passes. Thank you. One of the things I would like to suggest that when we call for motions during commissioner comments, I'd like for an ARF to be presented so we could have all this information ahead of time, because we didn't know what the regular fee was, and that's just no problem getting that on the agenda. All right, if it's a consensus like Wayne did, I think that's fine, but when we're gonna have a vote, I'd like for it.
I was just thinking of
Yeah, and
last
we
week
could,
when we
and we
were
could get
asked.
something out on at the last minute, along with
I
staff
think, I
has.
think we all have done, asked for motions during our commissioner comments.
Yeah, we
at
try to
one
just be-
time or another, so I'm sure it's gonna happen again at some point in time.
Yeah, there's times that it's appropriate, just as a suggestion for the future.
Just so you know, so the normal tournament rate at Black Rock is $38, and the rate that was given to the Commission on Aging is $35.
Okay.
And just so you know,
It's
So they were only giving them a savings of $3.
Yeah, that's not a lot. See, that would have helped me with some of my thoughts.
Now-
Is 35 a nonprofit rate for everybody?
I don't know that. I don't know that. And just so you know, there are 45 golf tournaments scheduled at Black Rock for this year.
See, there's where we could come in an agreement trying to lower that nonprofit rate so we don't lose completely a lot of money. That could maybe be cut in half for nonprofits that qualify. That's why I would suggest in the future, if we had an ARF, we could have known this and had a,
But
And we can
but will-
consider that.
We'll get all these fees and we'll provide all that to you so you have that
Okay.
information. So if you want to have further discussions, we can do that.
all right, thank you. Commissioner Wagner, you're up next. Or Mr. Burkett, are you done?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, you know, here we go again. We just made a vote. We didn't have any information in front of us. I thought we should have maybe asked the board of directors. Maybe we should have asked Andrew Escherman, Dave Brooks, and Ryan Crabtree who run it. I'm on the board. They've really done a good job of turning this around out there. The books are showing a whole lot better than they did 2 years ago. So I think we're headed in an extremely fast direction that way. And I guess the issue I have is right now there's the Fountain of Youth nonprofit scheduled. There's a Red Man nonprofit, which is veterans. There's a Mars Frock Post 42 scheduled, which is veterans. There's Cuddling Angels. There's a Commission on Aging. There's a Robert Johnson Community Center scheduled. There's Kevin's Fund scheduled. There's Children's Village scheduled. There's CASA scheduled. Clear Spring Boosters, Highland View Academy, St. Anne's. There's a lot of nonprofits scheduled. And again, we didn't have the right information. That's why I voted no. It's not that I don't support the Commission on Aging, but if they're trying to turn this around out there. And I just thought it was a bad vote at this time because we don't have any information in front of us. Again, none of us knew any of the rates. None of us knew how many nonprofits. I know because I'm on the board of directors. I was just lucky enough to know that. But the board of directors, I don't want to speak for them, but I can assure you they would have probably had a problem with that. Not that they don't have the say we do. Everybody keep an eye on Allegiant and Hagerstown Airport. They've added flights to Myrtle Beach, St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida. We're flying more there, so that's really going to help us out a lot. And I want to welcome Rick Johnson, the new director at the airport. I think he starts in the middle of June, doesn't he?
June 14th.
Yeah. And last night I attended Maryland Municipal League. It was nice to see some of the mayors and their staff and elected officials. It was short and sweet. It was hosted by Williamsport and the Springfield Barn. That's a nice event center. So that was really well. It went really well. Had hamburgers and hot dogs last night. We didn't overdo it and kept it down, and that's all I got.
Hey, thank you. I too attended the MML meeting last night. I think it was what they said, their first meeting back since COVID, other than doing things on Zoom or on the phone. And it was nice to see our colleagues and peers from the municipal level and share some fellowship. Also want to bring up Memorial Day. It's a time to thank our veterans who served and fought and defended our country. There's a parade in Sharpsburg and a parade in Boonesboro Saturday and Boonesboro Sunday. Wish for all who's available to go out and get out in the fresh air and to attend these patriotic events. With that being said, that concludes my report. Staff comments. Anybody from staff?
I do.
Okay, do you have anything?
Yes.
Please.
Commissioners, I have the Washington County Veterans Advisory Committee wishing to make an appointment of Peter McMillan to serve an unfulfilled term through February 28, 2023 as a representative of the United States military.
I'm good with that.
Is there a second?
Motion?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor for Mr. McMillan? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good go.
Also, Commissioners, the draft schedule for July 2021 through December 2021 has been presented. I'd like to know if everybody's had a chance to review and if you would approve with a consensus.
I think we're all okay with it, but we're always open to changes in the future
Yes.
when situation arises. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Krista, anything else
No,
for
so
you?
that's all.
Kirk or John, any reports?
just wish everyone a happy and safe Memorial Day.
Just a few things. Yes, I'd like to wish our citizens and our employees a happy and safe Memorial Day. Just to follow up on what you just discussed about our schedule moving forward, I think we mentioned this, but we are working with municipalities to start scheduling monthly meetings in the municipalities. So that information will be coming out soon. It'll be on a regular meeting date. It'll be in the evening. And I know Commissioner Baker had mentioned trying to do our meetings later in the day so we could go from one to another. So we're going to try to do that as well.
Thank you.
That was a topic kind of discussed casually last night
Yeah.
with the mayors and some of them.
Right, so we're gonna, and Krista's already reached out to some of them, and we're gonna go ahead and schedule them. And so over the into the summer and the fall and into the spring, we'll be able to hit all the municipalities. So, and at that time, obviously, we'll reach out to the municipalities ahead of time and see what, if there's any specific topics they wanna talk about. Just wanna remind everybody that there's no commissioner meeting next week. It's Memorial Day week, so we will not be meeting. The next meeting will be on June 9th. And I believe that's it. Thank you. We have attorney or
Alright.
staff.
No, I have no reports.
All right, well, no citizens' participation?
No, sir.
Do you want to announce how they can participate? Would you please?
All citizens are invited to participate to the Board of County Commissioner meeting by submitting a request via email to khart@washco-md.net or by calling 240-313-2204 at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting.
Good luck.
All right, Krista, anything else?
No.
Next on our agenda, the FY '21 budget adjustments from the Board of Education. Gentlemen, welcome. Please introduce yourself and the topic. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Brew, Chief Operating Officer, Washington County Schools.
Good morning, David Brandenburg, Executive Director of Finance, Washington County Schools.
Morning.
Before you today are budget adjustments that have been reviewed by the Board of Education's Finance Committee and were approved by the Board of Education at its meeting last week. These adjustments, of course, cross category distinctions, therefore they need to be brought to the Commissioners for approval per the annotated code. The largest transfer you see here is a shift from what we've done in previous adjustments this year. So we had been transferring funds that were savings that we had from times when we were on virtual instruction into our food service line so that we could continue to cover the costs that were related to paying staff during COVID times and when folks were working, even when we didn't have staff in the building, and to cover the loss of revenue within the food service fund for this year. That money is subsequently being transferred to one of our federal grants under the Education Stabilization Grants, and therefore it allocated or allowed us to reallocate that money. It's going into our capital outlay account to pay for the new 2 8-pack portable units that are being installed this summer at South Hagerstown High School, complete with covered breezeways to keep the students out of the elements and with additional fencing for security purposes. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have this morning.
South High is overcrowded now, isn't it?
It's actually
Over capacity, I should say.
It is running over state rated capacity, although the portables are not counted as part of state rated capacity. So the addition of 16 portables really yields you an additional 300 or more seats.
I'd motion to approve.
Second.
I have first and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next up, approval to submit application for the FY '22 Senior Centers activity. We have Allison and Amy, if they're in the area.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Allison, good morning, everyone. Hi, everybody. Please introduce yourself and your guest and the matter, please.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. My name's Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager for the Office of Grant Management, And joining me today are two familiar faces from the Commission on Aging, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Three familiar faces.
Yeah.
So Amy Olak, CEO of the Washington County Commission on Aging.
Bradley Tritch, COO.
The ARF that was presented in the packet is a little bit different. We have an additional ask on here. I did send it to Krista this morning with the additional amount. This morning, we're requesting the approval of the submission of the application of the Senior Citizens Activity Center Operating Fund Grant to the Maryland Department of Aging in the amount of $27,025 and accept awarded funding. The Washington County Office of Grant Management is seeking approval on behalf of the Washington County Commission on Aging to request funding in the amount of $10,940, which will be utilized to offset the cost of the salary of the assistant manager of the Senior Activity Center. In addition, the Washington County Commission on Aging is seeking $16,085 in competitive funding. The grant is written to support the virtual senior center platform, which is critical, excuse me, to assisting with the reopening of the facility and maintenance of virtual offerings that members have come accustomed to during the pandemic. These virtual offerings allow members who are otherwise would be unable to participate and continue to attending the Senior Activity Center offerings remotely. Beyond participation in offerings, the virtual Senior Activity Center classes and activities improve socialization among members, which is critical to maintaining members' physical and mental well-being. The funds requested for the $16,000 will be used to purchase cameras, microphone sets, 2 mobile televisions, 2 television stand carts, and a partial staffing cost for the development director. The Maryland Department of Aging requires applications to only be submitted by local governments. Therefore, the county will be the grant applicant and will enter into a subrecipient agreement with the Washington County Commission on Aging to implement the grant-funded project. Any grant awarded funding will be received and distributed through the county's Budget and Finance Office, and the Office of Grant Management will ensure all fiscal and programmatic reports are submitted in an accurate and timely manner. The grant performance period is from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, and no matching funds are required. Are there any questions?
Total amount is?
It's $27,025.
The applicant for the?
Yes.
Yes, and that's required by the grant.
It is.
Commissioners, any thoughts, comments, motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I know,
Discussion.
Amy, when we spoke recently, one thing that your organization has talked about and some other groups as well, are any of these grants impacted by the census? And although our population may have increased, not at the same rate as counties in other parts of Maryland, so we're seeing more seniors, but the potential for less money to come in to the county. Are any of these grants related to our senior population census?
Yes. So the first part of the grant is pass-through money. I think it was $10,940. And so that's a reduction from last year based on the projection for the census. But it is related, as will our state and federal funding be related to that as well. So if this is the trend that they're expecting to see in Washington County, then we would anticipate a reduction in state and federal funding moving forward based on census.
That's so fascinating. More seniors, the
Correct.
population has grown, but just not as quickly as other parts of the state.
Correct.
So we're seeing a reduction in that grant.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
Next up, approval to accept grant award, Administrative Office of the Courts, additional security. I believe Allison, you're still here. Welcome back. Is there anyone else joining you?
Yes, Kristen Grossnickel, she's out in the
Okay,
lobby.
we'll
She's
wait
coming
for
in.
her. Mm-hmm. Allison, please introduce yourself and your guest and
Good
begin.
morning, Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager for the Office of Grant Management.
Good morning, Kristen Grossnickel, Circuit Court Administrator. The Circuit Court submitted an application on April 12th to the Administrative Office of the Courts requesting security funding for the installation of bullet-resistant back glazing on the existing windows in the clerk's office, and for replacement of the existing interior doors, framing and hardware for the main entrance, and one exterior door for the law library entrance, and to replace with level 3 materials for the main entrance lobby. This grant would provide $82,560 for circuit court expenses. The Office of Grant Management has reviewed the grant fundings, and there are no unusual conditions or requirements attached. So we are asking for approval for the acceptance of the grant in the amount of $82,560 for the circuit court. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Allison, I think you're back again.
Yeah.
And you're waiting on, this time, Garrison.
He's also in the
Yeah,
lobby.
I was gonna say, he's out there.
Okay. Garrison, welcome. Allison, welcome. Please introduce yourselves in the matter.
Good morning, Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management.
And Garrison Foster, Director of the Hagerstown Regional Airport. We come before you today to approve a submission for funding request for the FAA in the amount of $1,009,888 and to accept that award funding. The proposed funding is for operational relief due to COVID-19. The Coronavirus Response Relief and Supplemental Appropriation Act was signed into law December 27, 2020, and included nearly $2 billion in funds to be awarded as economic relief to eligible U.S. airports as a response to the coronavirus. Each airport received a predetermined amount based off the formula developed by the FAA. The grant is 100% federally funded and thus does not require a state or local match. The funds are approved to be utilized for the costs related to operations, personnel, cleaning, sanitation, janitorial services, and combating the spread of pathogens in the airport and debt service payments. It is recommended to utilize the funds for wages and benefits of airport staff. The grant acceptance is due June 4th, 2021.
Garrison, can I ask, or Allison, does this money reimburse us for past expenses related to COVID, or is this for expenses going forward?
So this is, it can be used for both, to answer the question shortly. So we use the first funds for wages and benefits for the Coronavirus Act, the first round. And so with talking with Sarah and her team, we thought it would be beneficial to do the same thing for this next one. It just makes it a lot easier paperwork-wise for us to execute it that way. And then based off of savings that we have for wages and benefits, we can go through and redistribute those savings accordingly and how we see fit.
Okay. And who's going to decide how the savings will be redistributed? Will that come back before the commissioners eventually, or is that handled at the staff level?
So it'll come back before the commissioners. So if it'll go into reserves first and foremost, and then if there's a need, that will come before the commissioners to be distributed.
And because this is an enterprise fund, it goes into the reserves for the airport.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
You had mentioned part of it was used for wages and benefits. I'm not sure I understand what that means.
Yeah, so wages and benefits for the airport staff. So basically, that's there was a.
So all of the
an approved
wages at
fund.
the airport come out of the enterprise fund, not the general fund.
That's correct.
Is that going to create a permanent increase in their wages that we're going to have to then continually?
So our normal wages and benefits beyond our our normal raises and things like that stay consistent, but this does not add to that. It simply pays for what they currently are.
So I guess where I'm confused is why would some of that money had to have been used for wages and benefits if it was already budgeted? Wages and benefits are already budgeted in last year's budget.
Yeah, so the FAA says you can use these funds for a variety of things, right? So we can use them for operations, personnel, cleaning, sanitation, janitorial services, and then combating the spread of passengers in the airport, and then also debt service payments. We used them for wages and benefits last time. We thought that would be the easiest route to go about it this time as well. So that's just what we're recommending.
So it wasn't additional money added to wages and benefits?
No,
Okay.
no, it's the existing.
All right, any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
First, second, any other discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I guess you're back.
We're back.
Please introduce yourself in the matter.
Allison Hartshorn, Grant Manager, Office of Grant Management.
And Garrison Foster, Director of the Hagerstown Regional Airport. Come forward this morning to move to approve the submission of a funding request for the Maryland Aviation Administration in the amount of $45,000 and to accept award funding. The proposed funding is for the Terminal Access Control Project. Grant funding is for the purchase and installation of necessary equipment to complete the terminal access control and security system upgrades that were not able to be funded as a recent part of the terminal expansion project due to changes in TSA security requirements that were not in place when the design of the terminal was being undertaken at the Hagerstown Regional Airport. This project is a necessary and vital enhancing operational safety and security of the airport terminal and its associated ramp area as mandated by the TSA and FAA regulations. The terminal access project is budgeted in FY 2022 CIP budget, and the grant application is due June 15th, 2021. So the way the Maryland Aviation distributes that is, so the total project amount is for $60,000. The Maryland Aviation grant will be for 75% of that, which comes out to $45,000, and then our local match, which is budgeted, will be $15,000 or 25% of that project.
Thoughts, comments?
Motion to approve.
First and second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey Garrison, do we ever get parking, do we ever get cameras up in the parking lot? Did that ever happen?
We have not got that yet. We are working on that. It's part of, fixing that as part of the current project that we have with the VPMS right now. So that should be up and going shortly. As far as additional cameras in the parking lot, we haven't done more than that. It will just be a
There
couple.
been any incidents out there?
Not lately, but we are getting into the summer season, which normally that's an uptick for that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we're a few minutes early, but I think we are okay to begin. Approval of water and sewer rates fiscal year 2022. Mr. Bradshaw, will you come forward and introduce yourself? And Sarah?
Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer.
Mark Bradshaw, Director of Environmental Management.
Here before you to present or request the approval of water and sewer rates for fiscal year 22. Water and sewer revenue requirements show that an increase in revenue is necessary to facilitate the Department of Water Quality's long-range financial plans. The rate schedule is based on this requirement. It is attached to the ARF. The 3.5% increase for the water fund generates approximately $26,000. The water fund currently for fiscal year 22 has a general fund subsidy of $187,000. The 3.5% proposed increase for the sewer fund generates approximately $331,000. And the sewer fund is currently being balanced for fiscal year 22 with reserves of $626,000. Using a 12,000 gallon benchmark, the average sewer customer would face an increase, a quarterly increase of approximately $6.21. And an average water customer with the same 12,000 gallon usage would experience approximately a $6.11 quarterly increase. The increases are not 3.5% across the board, meaning we have a base charge and we also have a volume charge. So those users of the system that only use the base charge or less, which would be 6,000 gallons a quarter or less, would actually only have a $2.61 increase for water, and a $2.39 increase for, actually I had those backwards, $2.61 for sewer and $2.39 for water. So if they do not use more than the 6,000, their increase would not be the full 3.5%. Based on the rate model projections, these rates should be used to offset any general fund contribution that would be needed for the water fund and to get the sewer fund back to a self-supported status, which we do feel would take a couple more years until we are at that point. Are there any questions on the rate increases or?
I have one or two questions in general. Beginning, I think July 1st, are we not, I hate to use this word or be insulting, is there a rain tax or something coming in, an extra fee coming in from the city that would affect some of our
The city has a
county
stormwater
properties?
fee. Yes, the city is implementing a stormwater fee.
Okay.
It's
And-
not a county fee.
Yeah, not countywide. The other thing, I think a few weeks ago or months ago, you mentioned that the city was thinking about taking over some of the wastewater treatment with a proposed plan, and there'd be a loss to us maybe in revenue, 500,000. Is that correct, approximately?
It's approximately 400,000. It's based on the joint service area, correct,
Yeah,
Mark?
the joint, so that's what I was forgetting to say. So how's that affect the rates?
It does impact the rates. It does impact the length of time that it will take the county to reach a self-supported status.
Will that happen all at once, that fee, or is that a gradual over time?
It will happen in about 3 years. They have to upgrade one of
In
their
3
existing
years.
pump
Okay.
stations, but once the pump station's brought online, then at that point, we would no longer charge them for the wholesale rate, and the city would
Take them as full.
take them over as full-service customers
Okay.
at that point.
Commissioners, questions, comments, proposals?
At your current proposal, with everything being said, what's the break-even point, what year?
Currently, for 22, if the rates are passed, it appears, with 2 more years of the 3.5%, that would put us in year 25. Actually, 3 years of the 3.5. So fiscal year 25 would be the break-even year where we would be able to support the expenditures. Now, that does have several assumptions included in that plan. It includes the 400,000 that Mark discussed. It also includes the new customers that we plan to get from the capacity management project, which is in the Morgansville area. So it includes additional revenue from that project
So in
as well.
2026, you're gonna say, oh, guess what, you don't have to raise any water and sewer rates.
I'm probably not going to say that, sir. Probably what I will suggest
Is this being
that
recorded?
while we do, while we may not need a 3.5% increase, that there will continue to be state mandates that we face, that will have to contribute, to, different projects that we have to do in the county. And, having a lower increase is probably what we would be suggesting once we're at a self-supported status.
So the unknown, Mark, would be state legislations that make us do things that cost a lot of money.
That is always an unknown and has been a unknown for years, but yes.
And that's affected us pretty heavily over the years.
We only anticipate the regulations to become more stringent as time progresses, so yes, we will more than likely have some.
What do you
mandates
see
in
coming from, what do you see coming in the future?
Right now, the concentration is only on the major wastewater treatment plants, which is above 500,000 gallons, but I do anticipate somewhere down the road they will go after the minor plants and make the minor plants become ENR compliant also, which we do have several minor plants, and they would be large capital expenditures when we had to do them.
Okay.
Mark, just want to thank you and Davina for taking Charlie and myself on a tour the other week in the rain on a Friday, I believe it was.
Yes.
It's always interesting to see that process up close. Most people, I think everybody appreciates unknowingly what your department does for them. It's a complicated process, and as I also speak with many of our leaders in the municipalities, it's a complicated process for them as well. Do you know what kind of an increase our municipalities may be facing, those municipalities who handle this on their own?
You talking about the small municipalities or the bigger ones?
Their rate increases. Do you know, are any of our municipalities doing rate increases as well this year?
I think some of them are proposing. I don't know if I got that cheat sheet with me or not.
Just wondering how their increase might fall in line with ours percentage-wise.
We did reach out to several of them, and a lot of them did reply back that they will not have their rate increases established until June.
Okay.
They're probably waiting to see what we do, is that?
Some of our wholesale customers do wait to see what the county does, and then they pass that along.
Frederick City's proposing a 3% increase. We do have their numbers. Funkstown's at 3%. Greencastle is projecting 8% on water and 3% on sewer. Charlestown is projecting an increase, but they did not have the percentages when we contacted them.
I'd be interested in seeing some data. I know you're always talking percentages, but that really means nothing to me other than a percent. I'd like to know what it is in total dollars for each of those municipalities or each of the surrounding area water sewer users. Maybe you could show us exactly what their cost per quarter is for each.
I do have that here on my cheat sheet, so I will forward them to you after today.
That'd give me a better understanding of where we're at compared to all of the surrounding areas.
Okay, yes.
Commissioners, any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the rates?
I just know,
Go ahead, you have more comments.
whenever they started that model, however many 20 years ago, and I understand they didn't incorporate unforeseen mandates and things like that there, but all of this was supposed to go away, and it was supposed to level out and supposed to pay for itself. And
Terry's
you know,
correct.
and I
We've been
sus-
hearing it's gonna be zero
yeah.
for a decade. So
Longer than
it's-
that, yeah.
I don't think we would ever suggest a 0% rate increase just for full
Yeah.
transparency, but the hope is that maybe it wouldn't be a 3.5%. We'd like to get that down something more like
Well,
2%.
at some point in time, the people aren't going to be able to afford their water and sewer. It's probably there now for many of our residents. So, and I was just looking at the increase, and again, I don't study the budget for the department or anything like that there, but on your water increase, it talked about $26,000. So that's how much this increase is going to generate. So,
That's right. I think it then becomes a conversation of, is it the ratepayers or is it the general tax base?
well,
Did you all consider a smaller rate increase, percentage-wise?
The commissioners, if you do a smaller rate increase for the water fund, it will just mean additional funding from the general fund that will need to go to the water fund to support it. And if the sewer fund, has a smaller increase, we just won't get to that self-supported status as quickly. We could potentially use additional cash reserves, but it does have an impact down the road. So
What's the impact, what's the impact of using, like a 2% using reserve or general fund money to make the difference of, what's
For
in
which
there?
one?
Both.
I wouldn't suggest using general fund dollars for sewer support. General fund is already supporting the water fund. That's something that the commissioners can consider and discuss. 2%, if 3% is gonna generate,
3.5 generates 26,000, so 2%,
right,
maybe 18,000.
Right.
So you'd have to.
right. I mean, you would just, increase the appropriation to the water fund from the general fund, and you would reduce the amount that you have in reserves, in the general fund. So that's how we would balance fiscal year '22. The water fund's very different than the sewer fund, because the water fund, there's not without some substantial change to the fund itself and the operation itself, there's really no path to a self-supported status. The sewer fund's in a very different position. The sewer fund has a way to get to a self-supported status, and that's why that plan is so important, so that we can try to get there as soon as possible. It does impact our rating, it impacts our debt ratio, because the general fund has contributed in the past, and so, the way that that's viewed from the rating agencies is that their debt is now included in our debt ratios. And so we need to get out of that for a multitude of reasons, not just to get the fund self-supported, but for other reasons as well. So that actually has a path to be self-supported. So I think that's important to understand. There's very different future for the water fund versus the sewer fund as far as self-supported status goes.
So what happens if an overwhelming majority of the users only use the base of 6,000 gallons? Then what happens?
For the water?
Well, water and sewer. Or is the sewer 6,000 base also?
Yes.
Well,
So-
we'll generate less revenue.
Yeah, so what would that mean?
You mean how much loss?
Yeah, so what would that mean
Or
to
to the
our
bill?
budget? Yeah.
Well, the bills, their bill would go up $2.61.
No. If everybody would just buckle down and just say they would just stay at, wouldn't go over the 6,000 gallon, because I'm sure a lot of the money that we need to generate is based on our customers using additional beyond 6,000 gallons.
That's right. I mean, included in the rate model, there are assumptions. We track how much the volume has been. We, attribute a certain percentage to how many of our customers are using the base only versus the base and volume. So it's all part of the calculation that goes into the projection for the rates and what they should be to be able to generate the revenue that we need to support the operation. And so, if we do have a drastic change in the way our customers are using the water and the amount of water, it will significantly impact our revenues, and we wouldn't be able to support our expenditures without dipping further into our cash reserves. If we deplete our cash reserves, we'll have to then appropriate funding from the general fund to make that up, unless we wanted to get other type of funding like a loan or something like that.
And how much do we have in our cash reserves right now?
For the sewer fund,
Or both?
the water fund, I believe it's a couple $100,000. And the sewer fund, I believe, $2 million. That's off the top of my head. So, if we, for instance, if we didn't have a sewer increase for fiscal year '22 and it generates $331,000, we're already using $626 in reserve. So then that would increase the $331. So that would be $950,000 in just 1 year of reserves. So that'll take about 2 years to deplete the reserves, and then we'll have a third year where we'll also probably need some help. So if we don't if we don't end the year better than we predict, then we may face the situation where we'll need a general fund loan or an
Reserve
appropriation
funds are
from the
also
general.
used for maintenance or repairs or things like that. Is that correct?
Reserves?
Yes.
Reserves, yes, are supposed to be used for catastrophic, events
For
or.
example, Westfield's had a main break. Was that water or sewer down at Westfield? Sewer. So that repair cost would have came out of our reserves for
That
that?
comes out of the operating budget. We do have some
If-
money programmed into the
But if we
operating
would ever go
budget.
beyond the operating
That's right.
budget,
It all
that's
falls
where
to
the reserves
reserve.
fall into place.
And another thing to note is that by policy, we're required to keep 25% of operating and maintenance costs in reserves.
Okay.
And so that's, that's kind of where those funds are right now, just meeting their policy requirement. We can draw from that, but we'll have to have a plan internally. At least that's what our policy says, that if we draw below the 25%, that we have a plan in place to replenish those reserves for sustainability.
All right, commissioners, comments, questions, proposals? Or a motion to approve?
I'm really worried about, and I've seen it so much, we saw it affect us throughout the county already on the state legislative mandates that are gonna cost us a fortune. They've already cost us a lot of money. I'd like to see that figure, but I know it's gonna get worse. I can see it coming. Based on that, I'd motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Is there any more further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is that 5-0? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, thank you,
Thanks, Mark.
Mark. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Approval of fiscal year 22 operating and capital budgets. Sarah, please introduce yourself and the matter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sarah Greaves, Chief Financial Officer, here for the approval of the fiscal year 22 operating and capital budgets. The Board of County Commissioners conducted a public budget and tax rate hearing on May 18th at 6 p.m. to permit the public to testify. Public comment was held open until 4 p.m. on Monday, May 24th. The property tax rate of 0.948 per $100 of assessed value does remain the same. The income tax rate was reduced, or is projected to be reduced rather, from 3.2% to 3% effective January 1 of 2022. I have attached a budget summary for you to the ARF, but I would like to first ask if there are any questions or concerns related to the capital budget that was presented for fiscal year 22, or maybe if we can go ahead and approve that, and then we can talk about the general fund budget, unless you'd like to do it together.
Just based on my comment earlier during commissioner comments, when I suggested we agreed to allocate monies, capital monies specific to those two elementary schools, that's something that we can do at any point throughout the budget year. It does not have to be done at this time, correct?
That's correct. It doesn't have to be done at this time. The commissioners can discuss that later, and we do have available funds in the operating budget for the general fund under the reserves line item that we would be able to utilize for that purpose if that's the commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Right, for that purpose or any other purpose that the
That's
commissioners may
correct.
decide anytime throughout the year.
Yes. I will note, just for the record, that the maintenance of effort for the Board of Education came in a final number of 105,788,412. We generally round to the nearest 10, but we do have that amount plus a little bit more in the budget for fiscal year 22, just for the commissioners to be aware of.
Yeah, so that final number we just received from Maryland State Department of Education
Yes.
late last week. So
We just received that late last week.
Higher or more?
What we have in the fiscal year 22 budget for the Board of Education is actually $53,298 more than the maintenance of effort.
Okay.
And to explain that again for anyone who may be listening, the reason why is the state of Maryland looked at enrollment figures from not last year but the year before.
That's correct.
To determine what per student,
Yes.
how many students we had to allot monies towards.
That's correct.
So even though the school board student population has declined during COVID, parents deciding to homeschool their children, maybe private schools so they could attend in person, or just people moving for whatever reason, the student population declined and
Yes.
student population is down, but the contribution is actually higher.
It's actually increasing.
And that was
yes.
a legislative initiative, correct?
It
to
was.
do that?
Yes, because the contribution to the Board of Education for fiscal year 22 in the budget as it stands right now is actually increasing by $2.6 million, even though there is a decline in that enrollment because they use the prior year full-time equivalent.
And I've had some people ask me about the hold harmless concept. That's out the door at this point. That's no longer
That's my
a discussion
understanding,
point.
yes.
Yeah.
That was like a preliminary as we started the budget season, and then as Kerwin passed, then this new legislation kind of trumped that. So, yes, I believe that's.
Right, that is correct. That is correct. It's not.
Would it be fair to say that next year it'll be 2 million more?
Yes, probably more than 2 million more, because it's generally about 2.5% increase per year. It is a per pupil calculation, but
Is there
it
like
does.
an escalator added to that, or is that just 2.5% based on more enrollment?
It is based on the maintenance of effort calculation, and so there are 3 different criteria that counties are benchmarked against. 50% of the counties are given a status where they have to contribute the 2.5% more per pupil. And the county is in that status. That's why we assume.
So you're right. I mean, next year it's going to be somewhere between $2 and $3 million.
Yeah,
more.
2 to 3 million, 2.5 to 3
The
million
maintenance of effort will be.
next
Every
year
year.
as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Every year.
pretty much.
Okay.
We've looked at the preliminary Kerwin for the next 10 years, and, you know, for Washington County, it appears that as long as we continue to keep giving 2.5% more or roughly around there, you know, that's kind of where we're gonna stay. There were some years with some additional appropriations, but I haven't had time to dig into that. Those were in the out years, so we'll keep monitoring that and keep you informed.
Sarah, continue, or?
I would just ask if there are no further questions, if I can receive approval for the budget and
Commissioners' comments, thoughts? Motion to approve?
That's the overall budget, that's the.
I mean, I think
That's
we
it.
should just do it as an overall
Overall
approval because
budget.
we have
General
19
fund and
different
capital
funds
and-
and, yeah,
Which includes the tax rate, which it
Right.
remains unchanged,
that's correct.
the property tax rate.
Right, property tax.
Property tax rate.
And
Commissioner?
you need a motion to approve both the capital and the operating budget though, correct? Or
Well, at first I was thinking that, but, you know, unless we go by fund, I think we can do it all as one, unless
I think you did it all as one.
all as one.
I think you can do it all as one. Yeah, you don't need to separate, I think if there was an issue.
It's always separated in my mind, so I think that's where I was going at
Right.
first, but.
any more questions or comments?
Is there first, Wayne, was that a motion to approve both?
I'm gonna ask one question, I think. 'cause
Wait,
I'm
one
just-
second, Renato. Did you have a motion, Wayne?
I haven't made a motion yet, so
Okay, so you go
anyone
ahead.
can
Yeah,
ask
you're
a
welcome.
question.
You're welcome.
I'm just sitting here looking at the fact that we are increasing the overall budget from fiscal year 21 to 22 by $16 million. I just want to, that's a large number. And, I mean, we did a tax cut. Hopefully next year we can do another tax cut. But is that normal to see that kind of growth in one year?
We've never
16
really
million.
experienced that kind of growth in Washington County, but the reason for that is that 22 actually reflects like the first year that we are reflecting the 3.2% income tax rate in there. So prior to that, I mean, for fiscal year 21, even though we had the 3.2% effective rate, it wasn't really presented well in the 21 budget because we had so many concerns about COVID, and so the budget was greatly reduced because of that. So the increase that you're seeing is reflective of that 3.2% income tax rate.
So because of the higher tax rate, it enabled Washington County to expand their belt loop a little to the tune of $16 million.
We had a 5-year plan when it was determined to increase that rate, and we had a lot of different things on that plan, and the idea was that, you know, in year 5, we would be able to support the expected or anticipated expenditures with that tax rate, and that we would have several years where we may experience a surplus. But we had also, you know, there were a lot of things that we did not do in 21's budget that we
let me
needed to do in
interrupt 1 second.
22.
Wasn't 2021 less than 1% increase? Isn't that what our increase last year was?
Yeah, I think so.
So we were less than 1. We didn't do a lot of stuff because at this time last year, we didn't know about COVID. We didn't know about this. It was.
But we also had no money appropriated to capital,
I was
which
gonna
is
say,
a
there was no money appropriated
significant
to capital in
impact.
FY20.
That's
Yeah,
right.
so
there
that's
is
some of
money
the.
for capital this year.
But
Plus
there
the
is money in
increase-
capital.
The increase in maintenance of effort and the, the new firefighters.
If you
we
just look at the
hired. So there
firefighters
is a-
alone, you've got almost 3 million in firefighters, you've got 4 million in capital, and you have, the first thing that you mentioned, there was,
The
Board of Ed.
Board of Education.
So
and the-
2.6
so when
million.
you
So
start
right
adding those
there,
numbers up, that's one way
got
to get
close
towards
to
the 16.
10 million, yeah.
So it's not,
So I wouldn't say it's usual, but because of the circumstance, it does make sense.
so next year, obviously, when we're here, I mean, the Board of Ed will go up, we've already discussed that, under maintenance of effort. The firefighters they'll already be
established in the
established
budget.
in the budget.
But
And
next
we'll
year, the
already have
budget will
capital, 'cause
probably,
Because we are including capital in this year's budget, so,
but next year, the budget will probably go down,
right.
probably.
I'd motion to approve the budget.
I have a first. Is there a second?
It's both operations and capital.
Yes.
I'll second with a comment if
With
I can.
discussion, go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah. With this budget, I just want to thank our taxpayers of Washington County. The average family, and this is an amount that's been heard before, The average family will pay to Washington County government a year $3,870.96. That assumes from our treasurer an average SDAT assessment on a home of $247,000 and the average taxable return income of $50,980 of taxable income. That's taxed at our 3% county tax rate. So $3,870 is what, and 96 cents is what the average family in Washington County will pay to
3,800?
Washington County. I'm sorry?
3,800?
$3,870.
Okay.
Yeah, and some change is what the average family in Washington County will pay to us and their taxes. You know, during a 4-year term in office, we spend over $1 billion. That's a phenomenal number. And it's our county taxpayers that fund that to make sure that we can provide those services that we do. The average, just another statistic to break it down, based on how we spent money in years past, 49% of our budget goes towards education. The average household pays $1,896, whether they have children or not, is what they pay to education. And for public safety, on average, we spend 23% of our general fund budget. That's $890.32. I think those are big numbers and important that we need to be reminded of as we make our decisions. To me, that's a lot of money from our citizens, from the average family, and we need to thank our taxpayers for funding government the way that they do.
Okay.
And that's just the county portion, that doesn't include state?
State or federals on top of that. That's right. Good point.
Okay, I have first and second. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
With that being the last item on our agenda, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go to closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Thank you, Sarah.